Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we take a closer look at a crime or justice milestone that happened on this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is January 8th. In today's episode, we're going to go back to 2011 and revisit the tragic events that happened that day in Tucson, Arizona, when a mass shooting left 6 people dead and 13 people injured, including U.S. Representative Gabrielle Giffords. It was a horrible, heartbreaking day that ignited conversations around gun violence, mental health, and the toxicity of online political discourse. Let's get into it. The morning of January 8th, 2011 began as a hopeful one. Representative Gabby Giffords was hosting a Congress on Your Corner event outside of a Safeway grocery store in Tucson, Arizona. This event gave her constituents an opportunity to meet with her face-to-face, and it was part of her efforts to stay accessible to her constituents. Giffords was a Democrat, and she was well known for her focus on bipartisanship and her advocacy for issues like border security and renewable energy. Just after 10 a.m., as Giffords was speaking with a constituent, 22-year-old Jared Loughner approached the group. Without any warning, he pulled out a Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol and opened fire. The scene turned chaotic in an instant. Within seconds, 33 shots were fired, hitting 19 people. Giffords was struck in the head at point-blank range, and 6 lives were tragically lost. Those victims included John Roll, 63, the chief judge for the U.S. District Court for Arizona; Christina Taylor Green, 9, a young girl with aspirations of leadership; Dorwin Stoddard, 76, who died shielding his wife Mavi from the bullets; Gabe Zimmerman, 30, a Gifford staffer who was dedicated to public service; Phyllis Shank, 79, and Dorothy Morris, 76, 2 retirees who were there to meet their Congresswoman. Amid the chaos, several bystanders managed to act heroically. 74-year-old Bill Badger, who had been grazed by a bullet, tackled Loughner to the ground with the help of other witnesses, including Patricia Maish, who grabbed a magazine from Loughner's hand as he attempted to reload. Their quick actions prevented further deaths. Emergency responders acted swiftly, and the victims were transported to local hospitals. Giffords was rushed into surgery at the University Medical Center in Tucson. Her injuries were severe. A bullet had traveled through the left side of her brain, but against all odds, she survived. Jared Loughner was arrested at the scene, and investigators quickly began looking into him and piecing together his history. As it turns out, Loughner had displayed erratic behavior for years, marked by paranoia, delusions, and a fixation on government conspiracies. He had even been suspended from Pima Community College following multiple outbursts, but despite all of these warning signs, he was still able to legally purchase the firearm that killed and injured 19 people that morning. The shooting sent shockwaves across the country. President Barack Obama addressed the nation calling for unity and reflection, saying, quote, "At a time when our discourse has become so sharply polarized, it's important for us to pause for a moment and make sure that we're talking to each other in a way that heals, not in a way that wounds," end quote. For Giffords, the road to recovery was grueling. She needed months of intensive therapy and had to relearn everything. She had to relearn how to walk and to speak. And while she officially stepped down from her congressional duties in 2012, her advocacy work only grew stronger. Along with her husband, astronaut Mark Kelly, She co-founded Giffords' Courage to Fight Gun Violence, an organization focused on gun reform and preventing future tragedies. Following his arrest, Jared Loughner faced federal charges, including the attempted assassination of a member of Congress and the murder of federal employees. However, the legal process immediately hit roadblocks when questions about Loughner's mental fitness arose. In May 2011, a federal judge ordered Loughner to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, a serious medical condition that had likely gone undiagnosed and untreated for his entire life. Loughner was initially found incompetent to stand trial and was sent to a federal medical facility for treatment. During this time, he was forcibly medicated to stabilize his condition. Now, this decision was controversial, drawing criticism from civil liberties advocates who argued that forcibly medicating a defendant violated his civil rights. However, the court ruled that the treatment was necessary in order to ensure a fair trial. By mid-2012, after over a year of treatment, Loughner was declared competent to stand trial. However, his defense team didn't see the point in a lengthy trial, at the end of which Loughner faced a potential death penalty. So they began negotiating a plea agreement. On August 7, 2012, Loughner pleaded guilty to 19 federal charges, including the murders of Judge John Roll and Giffords' staff member, Gabe Zimmerman, as well as the attempted assassination of Gabrielle Giffords. During the plea hearing, Jared Loughner showed no visible emotion. When asked by the judge if he understood the consequences of his guilty plea, he responded calmly, "Yes, I do." The plea agreement spared him from the death penalty, but ensured that he would never be released from prison. In November 2012, Jared Loughner was sentenced to 7 consecutive life terms plus 140 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing hearing, victims and their families had the opportunity to speak. Gabrielle Giffords' husband, Mark Kelly, spoke on her behalf, saying, quote, "Gabby would trade her own life to bring back any one of those you savagely murdered. You tried to create chaos, but instead you created a community of heroes." End quote. U.S. District Judge Larry Burns, who presided over the case, called the plea agreement an appropriate resolution, given Loughner's mental illness and the overwhelming evidence against him. The Tucson shooting became a turning point in the national conversation about gun violence. While federal gun legislation remains deeply divisive in this country, the event did spur renewed efforts at state and local levels to address background checks and mental health reporting to various degrees of success. But Giffords' story of survival and her advocacy in the years after the shooting have inspired countless individuals, including her own husband, Mark Kelly, who ended up following in her political footsteps. As Gabby Giffords herself said, quote, "Strong people stand up for themselves, but stronger people stand up for others." End quote. Each year, the Tucson community holds memorials to honor the lives lost and celebrate the survivors. Christina Taylor Green's family established the Christina Taylor Green Memorial Foundation, which supports youth leadership programs and scholarships. Today, Jared Loughner remains in federal prison, serving multiple life sentences, and has mostly been forgotten. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If this episode resonated with you, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. I'll be back tomorrow with another true crime story from history. Until then, take care of yourselves, and more importantly, take care of those around you. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!